Chapter 1. Needed: People-Centered Managers and Workplaces. How important are people? The chapter opening vignette highlights KPMG and how they are betting future success on the quality and job satisfaction of their people. They aren't alone in this either. Let's begin our discussion of organizational behavior by discussing in this chapter the importance of people-centered managers and workplaces. KPMG is one of those companies. Each chapter begins with a list of objectives that you should be able to understand and discuss after you have completed reading the material. At the end of reading Chapter 1, you should be able to identify Pfeiffer's goals and define the term management, discuss Theory X and Theory Y, and you should be able to identify Deming's total quality management principles. After you have read this chapter, you should also be able to contrast human capital and social capital dimensions of organizations. You should be able to explain the impact of positive psychology movements on the field of OB and define the term e-business. Let's first examine Pfeiffer's 7 people-centered practices. These practices, when implemented properly, can lead to high levels of job satisfaction, low levels of turnover, reduced absenteeism, and high quality and performance. All things that great managers and employees are looking for in a company. The practices are focused on these 7 areas: job security, careful hiring, empowerment, generous pay for performance, training, putting less emphasis on someone's status, and trust. Recall Figure 1-1 in your text, the 4-P cycle of continuous improvement where people are at the top, followed by products, processes, and productivity. While some managers proclaim that people are their most important asset, their behavior and that of the organization is often inconsistent and contradictory to that assertion. This is largely due to an emphasis on short-term profitability at the expense of developing people and focusing on job satisfaction over the longer term. The traditional definition of management is the process of working with and through others to achieve organizational objectives efficiently and ethically. Today, managers need to be much more sensitive to the needs of individuals, be aware of the larger and more challenging goals, and to motivate individuals to attain those organizational goals in an ethical and sensitive approach. A manager's job is not an undifferentiated whole. The manager performs many different tasks and juggles a variety of different problems and issues throughout the course of any given day. Interruptions are quite common, and finding large blocks of time for planning are rare. Research on the skills needed for management reveals 11 observable categories of managerial behavior which you can find in your textbook. This research also yields 3 useful lessons for managers. 1. While some argue that the most challenging aspect of the manager's job is related to the soft skills, a different perspective would be that mastering the hard skills is really related to developing effective people skills. Dealing with people is a fundamental principle of management. 2. The evidence shows that managers with high skills in this and other related areas have better performance and higher employee morale. 3. Interestingly, there does not appear to be any significant gender difference between the skill profiles of effective management of women and men. As we settle into the 21st century, managers face very different challenges and opportunities than was the case before. This slide displays the differences between traditional management and the demands and needs for managers of the future. You can review this information by turning to Table 1-1 in your text as well. These differences between past and future managers are based on such characteristics as learning and knowledge, compensation, culture, view of people, decision-making style, and the approach to change. Take a minute to review the table and consider how a company you have worked for or read about fits into the categories listed. Organizational behavior can help managers be more effective and efficient in harnessing the resources of the organization in achieving challenging goals. Organizational behavior is an interdisciplinary field dedicated to better understanding and managing people at work. The field of organizational behavior has been influenced by many different disciplines. Disciplines such as psychology, sociology, anthropology, and economics have had a profound impact on the development of the discipline. Historically, organizational behavior was influenced by what we call today the human relations movement. This movement was heavily influenced by psychologists and other behavioral scientists who called more attention to the human factor. The most famous marker of this tradition were the Western Electric Hawthorne studies pioneered by the psychologist Elton Mayo. Today, however, the Hawthorne conclusions are not borne out by research. For example, the Hawthorne studies researchers concluded that the supportive supervision employees received was largely responsible for the increased performance of the workers. However, recent research has shown that money, fear of unemployment, and that managerial discipline were largely responsible for the high output. Another early pioneer in the development of organizational behavior and the study of management was Mary Parker Follett. She saw employees as complex bundles of attitudes, beliefs, and needs. It was this complexity that led her to conclude that managers are largely responsible for motivating individual employees to high performance on the job. Douglas McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y assumptions that managers hold have a profound influence on the way in which they manage on the job. For example, Theory X assumptions hold a pessimistic and negative view of employees. Because managers have a distrusting view of employees, their work habits need to be carefully monitored and controlled. Theory Y, on the other hand, assumes that the individual employees are self-motivated, committed to quality, and want to do the right thing on the job. Therefore, managers should not control employees tightly, but rather should leave employees to their own devices as they will do the right thing. Total Quality Management, or TQM, is an approach to organizational management that is largely based on training, continuous improvement, and customer satisfaction. Shortly after World War II, in the late 1940s and early 1950s, Deming brought his version of total quality management to the Japanese. It is argued today that much of the Japanese success in achieving quality throughout the 1970s and 1980s was largely due to Deming's statistical process control and TQM philosophy and practices. Deming's principles focused on statistical process control, helpful leadership, teamwork, and the elimination of barriers to good workmanship. Deming created the 85-15 rule that states that when things go wrong, there is about an 85% chance that the system is at fault, and that only about 15% of the time is an individual employee at fault. There are 4 principles associated with total quality management. They are: 1. Do it right the first time. This emphasis on quality eliminates costly rework. 2. Listen to and learn from customers and employees. They are most frequently closest to where the processes are. 3. Continuous improvement is an everyday process. And 4. Teamwork, trust, and mutual respect are the fundamental building blocks of total quality management. More contemporary approaches to organizational behavior and management have focused on a more contingent-based view of management and employee behavior. For example, the contingency approach suggests that management and the use of managerial concepts, techniques, goal setting, and decision-making are more appropriately used based on the particular situation rather than taking a one-best-way approach to all situations and all people. Other approaches to the study of organizations and the role of individuals in the attainment of organizational objectives is the emphasis on human and social capital. Human capital is the productive potential of one's knowledge and actions. Recall from Table 1-3 in your text the 5 outcomes for human capital. 1. Leadership and managerial practices. 2. Workforce optimization. 3. Learning capacity. 4. Knowledge accessibility. And 5. Talent engagement. These 5 outcomes are seen as the fundamental issues associated with human capital. Social capital is defined as the productive potential of strong, trusting, and cooperative relationships. Here the emphasis is on interpersonal relationships. Human and social capital are directly relevant as strategic to the attainment of organizational goals. Organizational learning, or shared knowledge, is based on the interaction between individual human capital concerns and social capital. The strategic assumption is that people individually and collectively are the key to organizational success. Individual human capital dimensions consist of technical skills, creativity, motivation, and honesty. Social capital dimensions include shared values, mutual respect, teamwork, and a win-win negotiation framework. A movement within organizational behavior that focuses on the general quality of life is the positive psychology movement. This perspective recommends focusing on human strengths and potential as a way to prevent mental and behavioral problems and to improve the overall quality of life both within and outside of the work organization. The concept positive organizational behavior, or POB, is based on the study and improvement of employees' positive attributes and capabilities. Fred Luthans has suggested a model of positive organizational behavior. This model is called the CHOOSE model. The key positive organizational behavior dimensions are confidence, hope, optimism, subjective well-being, and emotional intelligence. Each of these dimensions can be further examined by referring to the chapters listed in Table 1-4. Technology has had a profound and pervasive impact on business and organizations. The Internet has revolutionized business transactions. Some businesses now use the Internet as their only point of interaction with customers. The e-business approach is defined as running the entire business via the Internet. The use of the Internet dramatically lowers the cost of communication and therefore reduces the overall cost of operations. This concludes the lecture on Chapter 1. Apply the concepts that you've learned in the end of chapter material and take a practice quiz on the Online Learning Center, www.mhhe.com/KINICKIOB4E.